Hello there. Welcome to another episode of the Tech Connect podcast. We're here to dig into all aspects of tech, jobs, tech careers in the industry, get some answers for you. Loyal listeners might notice a change of voice. Let me introduce myself. I'm Paul Farnsworth, aka Tech Bloke Paul. I'm president of Dice, the largest marketplace for tech jobs and tech career advice. At Dice, we know that job seeking can sometimes feel like a gamble with your future. And we're here to improve your odds. Let's talk about the options. Let's talk about what's changing. And let's give you real advice that you can use as you go to look for that next opportunity. I'll be your host for future Tech Connect podcasts. So let's dig in. Let's talk about what the trends are, what's happening in the industry. Let's invite interesting people. If you have suggestions, let us know. We'll see if we can go find them. Today's episode is with Amy Thibodeau. Amy is the Chief Design Officer at Gusto. And Amy and I are going to talk about the impact of AI on creative and design roles inside organizations and how the act of creating product specs, working with customers, doing research is changing. It's changing very fast, and Amy has some real world advice on how to handle that kind of speed. So we're going to talk to Amy Thibodeau from Gusto. She is the Chief Design Officer. And our conversation today is really going to be around kind of the intersection of AI and creativity, which is a big concern, particularly in the creative classes with the advent of AI. Is this helpful? Is it disruptive? We're going to dig into this a little bit. And I thought, Amy, if you're okay, we'll break this into 3 chunks. So let's set the stage a little bit, talk about the state of the industry, what you're seeing. Then let's talk about the impact on job seekers, people in the profession, what that really kind of means in terms of a career and what they might be wanting to think about. And then we'll wrap up with any big thoughts that you might have at the end. So before we get started, would you mind just talking a little bit about what is Gusto, what's your role there, and what does a Chief Design Officer do?
Sure, happy to start there. So Gusto is a platform that helps small businesses do things like run their payroll, offer benefits to their employees, and do other HR types of things that really, allow them to hire and look after the people who work for them. We have over 400,000 small businesses across the US who use Gusto. And then we also have a part of our experience where all of the people who work for them, who get paid through Gusto, also use an experience of Gusto. I am the Chief Design Officer, as you said, and what that looks like at Gusto is I lead the product design functions, the user research functions. We've got some content designers and copywriters, and I also lead the brand design team. So the people who are thinking about the visual expression of our brand, how that shows up on our website, how that shows up in advertisements and marketing campaigns. So the whole gamut of it. And yeah, I've been at Gusto for just over 4 years. It was 4 years at the beginning of June.
So lots of companies have an individual that thinks about the customer experience and the journey, and that's really your team.
Yeah, I would say it's my team. I have a slightly different framing on it in that I think that everybody who's building experiences for customers should be thinking about the customer experience and should be really close to it. At Gusto, we have a large team of support people who talk to customers every day. And we work really closely with them across Gusto to really understand, what our customers are calling in about, what they're confused by, where we have different opportunities to solve more problems for them. So I would say my team is we think of ourselves as sort of the steward of the customer experience and how that gets expressed, particularly in our product. But we really want every single person at Gusto who's working on the product to really think of themselves as responsible for crafting a great customer experience.
Great. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about what AI is starting, how you're starting to use AI for design and creativity. I think it's fair to say the explosion of AI is driven, in my opinion, by a couple of things. One is there's enormous advancements in chips. It means that we can process information faster and at larger scale. It's very accessible. Previous engineering innovations have tended to be difficult to get to. This just is a user interface that you chat with. And then it's a multidisciplined technology. It's able to replicate a lot of different skill areas. So, in particular, design and creativity. A lot of focus has been on its ability to generate designs to sort of offer creative solutions. So, just tell me, what do you think about AI? Is this helping you? How are you viewing it as in your discipline?
Yeah, I really see AI as a sidekick to humans. It's something that I think gives the designers on my team some superpowers to really help them move faster against the things that are actually not a great use of their time or creative energy, so that they can spend more of their time on the things that really do need that human touch. And so an example of this is even making research insights accessible to people. Previously, what we would do is we would have researchers who would get pulled in by a product manager on a particular problem set. They would put together a study. They would source for the study. They would interview people. They would transcribe those interviews. They would spend days, sometimes weeks, analyzing themes. They would then put that into a deck or a presentation. And then we would try to manually make sure that got in front of the right people. I think what AI enables us to do is we've still got a great research team, and they focus on what they do best, which is thinking about what is the right method to try to understand this problem, talking to customers, talking to those humans. And then where they're able to use AI to accelerate their work is in the transcription, helping them to look for themes, and then turning that into some kind of theme-based document that we can then make accessible to people across the company. And so it's not a replacement for research. I don't think that AI is ever going to replace the need for researchers. But what it does is it really speeds up the things that are not a great use of human creative time and energy. And I really see that as replicated across the design experience. So in another example, in our previous even though we've talked in this industry about agile forever, in practice, what product development often has looked like is something that is more waterfall. So you'll have a product manager, they will write some kind of a spec document. Then they have to try to bring the designer up to speed, and everybody's trying to get up to speed on the customer need. Then the designer will go and do their divergent, converging activities, present some kind of a design artifact to the PMs. We work on that, then it goes to engineers to build. I mean, that's not an ideal scenario, but it's often the scenario, or has often been the scenario. Where we are today is product managers and designers can work together on creating a product spec, understanding the problems. Designers or product managers can quickly use a tool like Replit to create a prototype, which is really just meant to be a proof of concept. Like, does this idea make sense? How might we solve it? Are we talking about the same things? And it creates, I think, more space for more divergent iterations without actually taking more time. And then eventually it is humans that make the decision, okay, what do we actually want to solve? What do we actually want to build? And sort of taking that to the finish line. But I think having AI involved really allows us to spend that divergent energy on creative work rather than on trying to, get aligned and figuring out the right tooling and manually putting things together in Figma. It just speeds all that stuff up.
Yeah, I have. I'm a long-time technologist, and I've spent time in basements doing paper prototyping, particularly to try and bridge the gap between what someone says they want and what they actually mean they want when they see it in reality. So that acceleration is going to be really exciting to see.
Yeah.
Do you think we get to a point where the engineering part of what would have been traditional design and production of product has gone away completely, and computers can generate the entire thing from a design spec?
I mean, I feel like this technology is moving so quickly and in so many different ways that it would be really hard for me to predict the future with respect to that. But what I firmly believe is that software exists to solve a problem for real humans. And it will continue to require a real human touch in order to solve those problems and understand them deeply. And I believe that that is true now, and I believe that will continue to be true in the future. Now, will the shape of how we think of R&D teams change in the future? I think it probably will. Like an example today is, this is a slightly cheesy name, but we call them design engineers.
Interesting.
It doesn't really roll off the tongue. But we are helping our designers at Gusto learn how to code using AI as a sidekick. And what we found is it's just incredibly empowering for them to be able to do that, to be able to see a problem in the product and to be able to make a change to the product without having to convince a PM or convince an engineer and getting it put on some backlog. It's actually just pretty easy for them to figure out how to ship a change. And I really see that trend continuing. So I think PMs will be prototyping more. Designers and PMs will be coding. And ideally what we get to is a place where that truly agile collaboration model is more possible than it ever was before, because we don't have this barrier of tool gap between us. We can actually work together on solving customer problems rather than going, well, I'm the one who uses Figma, and so I'm the one who has to do this part of the job. So I really see it blending together, and that's exciting. It's also scary, like I'm not going to pretend that doesn't come with some fear. I think one of the things that I talk a lot about with my team is how can we be part of shaping how design evolves with respect to AI and these tools, rather than sort of feeling like these changes are happening to us. How can we get ahead of them and really own the change? And it's something that, we talk about constantly as a team.
Yeah. I love, by the way, design engineers. Say that again.
Design
engineers. Is that right?
Engineers, but with design and engineering. So design engineers, I guess.
Got it. It's funny because I wrote Imagineer right underneath it. So I'm on the same page there. I get it. You'll be pleased to know, by the way, there was a list produced by Microsoft this week of careers that are likely to go away and careers that are likely to stay, given the revolution. Chief Design Officer isn't on the list of careers that will go away. I'll give you a couple of examples that are historian, editors, economic teachers. They're apparently doomed. I'll give you some ideas of things that are staying on the list. They are ship engineers, supervisors of firefighters. It's very random, but it's there. And rail track laying maintenance operators. So if you're looking for a second opportunity, track maintenance.
Yeah, or I could supervise some firefighters. That would be fun.
Yeah, or you could supervise firefighters, exactly. So with this change, I mean, change is constant. Design particularly has been something where digitization and digital tools have kind of have been part of the profession for a long time. What do you do to help balance the expectations, particularly from more senior leaders, that things are instant now and easy, with the reality of that it still requires work to get quality product?
Yeah, I think we're pretty honest and eyes wide open about this at Gusto. Like, we are all working on, this change, and we're in this change. And I think from month to month, quarter to quarter, what is enabled by the tooling that we have access to is different, and it's changing constantly. And so I think the thing that we really lean into, and the expectation that we lean into, both for ourselves and for the people at Gusto, is like, let's all be curious. Like it's a very different time. I think you used to onboard to a company or onboard into a role, and there was this set of tools and this way of working that the company had, maybe a product development flow, and you would figure out how design slotted into that, and you would sort of learn the job that way. And it was relatively fixed and could be fixed for years and years and years. And really only the problems you were solving would change. And I think what is really different is that from month to month, quarter to quarter, the way that we're working is evolving really fast. And, that can be exciting, and it can also be a little bit overwhelming for people. And so I think, as somebody who leads a big team, my main job is to help people understand what's available to them, create space for them to experiment and be curious with the tooling, and really reward that type of behavior, really reward people who are trying different things, trying different tools, sharing what they learn without that expectation of there is a very defined right way that we do things and that we approach this craft.
Yeah. I think that leads very neatly into the sort of the question of what does that mean for job seekers. Mm-hmm. So for a long time, and I've interviewed many people, and you get to a point where you want to know, do the skills they have match what we need from an organization? If the tools are evolving so quickly, how do you evaluate a job seeker? Because it can't be based on their experience with tools if that's shifting.
Totally. There are two things that I really look for. So the first is curiosity. Are they showing curiosity about different tools, about different ways of working? How are they talking about that? I think, for me, a red flag would be somebody who is sort of very entrenched in traditional ways of being a designer and traditional mm-hmm. ways of working. I don't think that they would be very successful in a company like Gusto, who's really looking into this exploratory, curious mindset. And so that's one of the things I'm looking for. So even if they've not built anything AI related, I'm looking for somebody who is learning things, is sharing what they're learning, is maybe trying different tools, is talking about it. So that's one thing. And I think the other thing that I'm looking for, and this is actually not unique to the today times, I think it's just slightly different, is I'm always interested in looking at designers who present their work and their process in a way that shows the messiness of it. So for example, in a portfolio review, what you often will see are designers who come in and they will talk about the double diamond, which is this sort of design framework and approach, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Paul. And they'll talk about a project as though they've perfectly followed this double diamond linear process. Yeah. And it's all ended up perfect at the end. And I think anybody who's ever done this work knows that it is never like that. It never works that way. And so what I love to see in portfolio presentations is somebody who will maybe talk about the approach they were trying to take, but will be honest about where it was messy, honest about where it went wrong, and honest about what they've learned. To me, that is far more important than sort of presenting a very perfect linear approach, because I have yet to see a project that goes that way. And so I want to know how somebody adapts, how they think about growth and learning when things are going wrong. It's almost more important than how they talk about when things are going right.
Yeah. It's funny. I was in an interview once, and I gave an example of how you should start with bad news, because it's important to get to where the challenges are. Mm-hmm. The interview did not like that answer, so I didn't get that job. Just funnily enough,
I would have hired you, Paul.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. That's good to know. So with that, staying curious, showing the messiness and being real about the process and what's required. Maybe you're in an organization as a designer where you're not seeing change that you might be interested in. How do I show it as a job seeker or how do I stay current with kind of the state of the art?
Yeah, I think first of all, you should have a point of view on the role of AI in design. As somebody who is in the industry, you should be thinking about it. You should be engaged with it. You should have a point of view, and you should anticipate that question as somebody who's interviewing for a design role at any level. Even if you're an intern and you're looking for an intern role, you should anticipate that people are going to ask you how you're thinking about the role of AI with respect to design, what types of things you're learning, what types of things you're trying. And I would say that's the most important thing. There are so many tools and resources and YouTube videos and things that you can try out there. And if you haven't tried them, then you really, really should, because these are going to be tools that are going to stick around. And so that's the type of thing that I would be looking for to assess in an interview, especially if somebody is either somebody who's really junior and maybe doesn't have a big body of work to show, or maybe somebody who's coming from a company where they have, had less opportunity for them to engage with AI.
Yeah. You mentioned things are moving fast, and they really are. You see evolution and ideas being built on almost every day. In the next 6 months, give me your kind of your big idea on where you think in the next 6 months, what big change will we see coming up, that you kind of see the germ of an idea that's going to grow.
I think the main thing is that swim lanes are going to continue to become less important. And so I think anybody who is approaching their career thinking, I'm going to be a designer and I need to go to design university and learn how to do all the sort of traditional things of a designer, I think that is actually going to matter less and less. I think what is going to increasingly matter is the ability to really collaborate cross-functionally to solve a problem, and to pay less attention to sort of the swim lane or sort of the traditional tools of the trade. I think that's one thing. I think the other thing that will be increasingly important is taste. The ability to look at material that is being created and sort of go, is this good enough? Does this really solve the human customer problem? Because let's be honest, all companies have access to the same AI tools, the same LLMs as all the other companies. And so, how do you sort of stand out in that environment? You stand out through being deeply, deeply customer-centric and deeply opinionated about what a good experience looks like for your customer. And so I think designers who are able to hold a high bar, articulate taste, and work really well collaboratively in an environment where the swim lanes matter less. I think those are actually going to be the tools that matter, not like your design pedigree, which school you went to, even like which big companies you've worked for in the past. I think those things are going to become less important as design is going to become more and more democratized.
Yeah. Here's a tough question. Because we are going to end up with a ton of AI slop. We already see it. It's kind of out there. It's an issue. Here's my last question then, which is something that I have had different opinions on over my career. Can you teach taste? Is that something that you have or don't have? Is it trainable?
I think taste is... I think it's tangible. I'm going to use a different word than trainable. I think it's tangible. I think often in design, we talk about taste as though it is this invisible bar and we will know when we see it. And I don't think it's just about visual polish. I think it's rooted in things like empathy, an ability to really deeply understand the customer and their pain points and the problems they're solving and speak to that. And to understand, is this thing actually doing that thing for the customer? Is it doing it in a way that they will be able to easily understand and navigate through? I think it's about, understanding who you are as a business and how you want to show up. For Gusto, like we talk a lot about the fact that we want to be warm, confident, guided. Like we solve problems that are truly existential for small businesses. Like if you can't figure out how to pay somebody, you can't figure out how to employ somebody. And that is something that if you look at legacy types of enterprise software, has been hard to figure out even when you're using software. And I think where Gusto has really differentiated itself is it's a warm experience. You go into it and it feels friendly. It tells you what to do. We have this little mascot at Gusto called Penny the Pig, which you occasionally will see show up across the product experience. And on one hand, it's very sort of almost like childlike and kind of innocent. But at the same time, it serves a really important purpose, which is to understand that you're a really small business owner. This stuff is really scary. Payroll can feel like having to do your personal income taxes, only have to do it every 2 weeks. You don't want to make a mistake. And the thing that we give them is peace of mind. We guide them. We make it friendly. We make it not scary. We reinforce that they're doing the right things. And to me, when I talk about taste at Gusto and the kind of experiences that I'm looking for us to create, it is an understanding of how to apply those concepts and to give our customers that feeling. And I don't believe you get to that through, sort of giving everything to sort of some kind of automation or like some future where AI is just able to generate everything, because I think it's so deeply grounded in the humans at the other end of the experience and an understanding of them and their sort of emotional context and reality as they're moving through these experiences. So that's what I think of when I think of taste. It's a combination of like all of those dimensions and then your ability to kind of bring them together into something that really truly makes sense for the customer and also is married with who we are as a company and how we want to show up in the world.
Yeah, and that is great and an awesome spot to stop. So Amy, thank you so much for giving us your insights. I know that, AI is a looming change to how a lot of people are doing work. I think the advice you've given us today has been incredibly valuable. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Really appreciate it. And listen, we're all learning. And it is a pace of learning that I think is unique in my career. Like I've been doing this now for 20, 25 years, and I have never experienced this type of pace of learning. And so, it's really exciting. And also there's a lot,
There is a lot. Well, the good news is you can always go back and ask Penny Pig for advice, can't you? So you've got that to lean into.
Manage some firefighters.
Or you can supervise the firefighters.
Supervise the firefighters, yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.